Good afternoon. Hello. So I'm over here. Sorry for those of you who have your back to me. I'm Peter Tufano, I'm professor of Harvard Business School, and you've been welcomed before, but welcome to Batten Hall and welcome to the iLabs. There's two parts to this story that connect with what we're about to hear. The first part, and I actually had a hand in founding this a long time ago. The first part is when we first proposed the iLab, the reaction from the university was, well, students shouldn't be working on innovative projects and entrepreneurial things, and they're not going to come anyway, it's too far away. And they were proven wrong about that because this is a really vibrant community of entrepreneurs. The second thing is that this is a story of sustainability. So if you roll the clock back to 2008 and 9, we were through the middle of financial crisis. This building was vacant and had previously been the WGBH studios. And the plan was to demolish this building because it could never be reused. The determination was made that this building could never be readapted to another useful use. And at the time we said, no, it could actually be used for this purpose. And so rather than rip this down and create something new, Batten Hall is really just a circular economy success story. So, so something about the building that you're in. My job at the Slot Institute, I'm senior advisor, which means I'm basically a fixer. That's the best way to put it. I try to do the things that other people don't yet have on their agenda. And one of the jobs that I have that I'm most honored to do is working with and alongside of our alumni. Our alumni are amazing. There are 400,000 of you doing all sorts of things. We don't know most of you. We don't know what you're doing, but we know that the power of alumni to affect change is huge. And I speak not only as a faculty member, but I am an alum of the college, of the MBA program, and the doctoral program. So I'm one of you. Our goal at the Slot Institute is to create, I always get this wrong, so I'm going to look down, durable, effective, and equitable solutions to climate change. And that makes perfect sense. But how are we going to do that? Part of it is through collaboration, and part of it's through activating people and supporting folks. So we have a great working group of alumni that organized this session. I'll say a few words about that. And a secret weapon over here, right over here, Leslie Hubbard, who is, she's the one who actually does all the work at the Harvard side. So thank you, Leslie. So if we think about alumni, individual alumni do great things, but also alumni in groups do things. And so some of you will know about HACE, Harvard Alumni for Climate and the Environment. If you don't know about HACE, by the end of this session, you will, because Daniel's going to make sure every one of you joins. And so we see our role as trying to connect and support alumni and alumni organizations in the climate space, to help them become more educated, to help them become more engaged, to help them become more effective, and help them become more resilient. And that's really what we're trying to do. We at the Slot Institute, our working group, what Leslie and I do every day. But the question that many of you have is like, where do I start? I'm currently doing X. How do I go from X to something else? And where something else is more kind of moving the needle. And so the working group came up with this suggestion for this event, which is to profile a number of alums for two reasons. One is so you can hear their stories, but they can be, in some sense, catalysts, the sand and the oyster, and you might gather around them and have a conversation. So this is a session that is alumni designed, alumni led, and we're led today by one of the members of our working group, Daniel Bicknell. So he is a 2013 graduate of Harvard College, and early on realized that this is what he wanted to do because he majored in ESPP, which is Environmental Science and Public Policy, went on to the Kennedy School, where he did his kind of projects, I think, on adaptation, and did a lot of core things, Peace Corps, Climate Corps, AmeriCorps, I think, too. The thing you're doing in Maryland is a core, I think, underneath it, working for DOE and Brookings and more. So Danny, in addition to doing all that, was one of the co-founders and co-presidents of the Harvard Alumni for Climate and Environment, HACE. And I am so thrilled to welcome him back to Harvard and to hand the microphone to him because he's the moderator for today's session. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Peter, Leslie. Can people hear okay without a mic? Folks in the back of the room? Is this better? Yes. It's better. So I'm going to use this. Always just some of the crowd work. So I'll be your jester of ceremonies today. And I am so privileged to be here with you all because this, for me, is why we're together. Whether or not you're a student or alum or even a community member, it's to be in community advancing the super difficult, challenging problems, because if it was easy, it'd be solved. So using that motivation and inspiration, I'm very excited to be spotlighting our 6 alum who will have 3 minutes each to share what they're working on. And they're also going to inspire you to get to know more about their work. There are 6 different breakouts because after these pitches, we want you all to engage and get to know each other. So you'll be able to do musical chairs, rearrange, and then have really engaging conversations. One of my goals for all these events, particularly with Harvard Alumni and Climate and the Environment, if you're not yet a member, go to harvardclimate.com, free to join, just do a Google form sign-up sheet, is for you to leave an event knowing at least 3 people in the room. So raise your hand if you know someone, just one person in the room. Now raise your hand if you don't know anyone in the room. That's going to change by the end of today's session. Now let's keep doing these hands. Okay, so how many of you are a current student? Okay, a few current students. Alumni from the university? Many more of you. Interested community members, practitioners, okay. Any staff? Faculty? Amazing, right? So that's also helpful not only for our speakers, but for one another. That way you get a sense of who's in the room. How many of you live in the Boston area? The US, beyond that too, and any international folk. See, look at that. Now, how many of you are right-handed? Left-handed? I'm joking now, okay. But you get the idea, right? Great crowd here. Well, without any further ado, I'm just gonna turn it over to a psychology undergraduate who has turned into the CEO of the Audubon Society. So I'm so excited to have Elizabeth come up to the stage and present your pitch for 3 minutes. We'll have a timekeeper, so you all don't have to worry about that whatsoever. But come on over.
Hi, nice to see all of you. Oops, let me put this on. Okay, is that better? So during the final push of World War I, an American battalion was trapped behind enemy lines. It was out of food and it was taking fire from its own side. Their last hope was a note that was carried by a messenger. This messenger traveled through smoke and gunfire. He got shot in the chest. He shattered his leg, but he carried on through 25 miles of chaos, and his message that he delivered saved over 200 lives. For his bravery, he was awarded a medal from France and the United States. His name was Seán, and he was a pigeon. As an undergraduate at Harvard, I studied how homing pigeons like Seán navigated. I was totally captivated by the idea that a bird could literally change the course of history. Birds taught me that courage takes many forms. It can be a steady wing beat during a storm, or it can be a single bold act. After Harvard, I became a scientist. I was working all around the globe. I was studying species on the brink and ecosystems that were under stress. And again, I could see the impacts of climate change everywhere that I was working. There were habitats that were shifting, species were declining, and communities were under pressure. And the science was really clear, but what we lacked was not information. It was frankly nerve. Because what I found is that the hardest thing about taking climate action is not about knowing what to do. It's actually about having the courage to actually do it and to act. So that realization led me to conservation leadership. And as the first woman to lead Audubon, I find myself these days spending as much time convening people as I do talking about birds. And this is typically convening people that don't typically talk to one another. It's ranchers with environmentalists. It's indigenous leaders with government officials. It's coastal residents with energy developers. And my role is to build trust among these groups so that they can then work together to move things forward. And that, I think, is part of the path here. So this idea of courage is at the core of Audubon's work since our very beginning. In 1896, 2 Boston women actually opened their parlor doors and they called upon other women to stop wearing feathers in their hats. They didn't have any formal power. They just had conviction. And by speaking up, they managed to launch a conservation movement that ultimately became Audubon, that changed laws, changed markets, and saved a number of species that were on the brink of extinction. So this is the legacy that I carry forward right now is Audubon. So birds are still our messengers. They are the proverbial canary in the coal mine. They are the symbols and the sentinels of our planet's well-being. And what birds are telling us right now is that we're in trouble. And their message is a warning, but it's also a call. It's a call to lead with courage. It's a call to act. And it's a call to bring others along with you. Because, of course, the knowledge that each of you has matters a lot. But the climate crisis will not be solved by expertise alone. It's really going to be solved by people who have the courage to act and the diplomatic skill to bring others along with them. So for me, this path began right here at Harvard, starting with imagining pigeons flying through gunfire and smoke, to then spending years in the field watching science collide with reality, and now leading an 120-year organization through what I would say is the defining crisis of our time. So I'm going to leave you with this. Who will you bring into this climate work, even though they think differently than you do? Because courage is not just about standing firm in your own conviction. It's about reaching out and bringing others unlike yourself along with you. And I believe really sincerely that that is how we will solve this climate crisis and change the world for the better, working together. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Courage is exactly what we need during this really trying, turbulent, disruptive, and disheartening moment. So it's a courage that I hope you all will continue to take with you and are motivated and think of Elizabeth as you have those difficult conversations and do the bridging work that's needed, now more than ever. Tom is going to be our next speaker. He has a master's in environmental health sciences from the Harvard School of Public Health and is now the managing director of NV Sustainability. So Tom, over to you.
Thanks very much. Is this on? No? Yep. Hi, everybody. I'm going to, like Danny did, I'm going to start with a question, too. Have you ever asked yourself this question? Is this medicine green enough? And by that, I mean, is it made environmentally conscious manufacturing, packaging, and distribution, and along with addressing greenhouse gas emissions? Working 36 years in environmental health and safety roles at Pfizer, I never got asked this question by any of my relatives. But I would put forward 2 questions that I bet you have asked that my relatives did ask. And that's, is it safe for me to take the generic drug? Can I trust the innovator, can I trust the house brand of an over-the-counter medicine? And I really think that those are sustainability questions too. That you're thinking about, can I trust this company? A company that pays attention to environmental responsibility is a company that pays attention to all of the issues and provides a better product. And I was privileged to lead Pfizer's Product Stewardship and Environmental Sustainability Program for 10 years. And we focused on the environmental impacts across the life cycle, from research and development to the supply chain to our internal sites, to ways that you could dispose of your products in a safe and environmentally responsible manner as a patient. So I know when you think of companies that are sustainable, you think of IKEA or Patagonia. And maybe after today, you might think about the pharmaceutical sector too, because it's critically important that the healthcare sector focus on this issue. Healthcare Without Harm has estimated that the pharmaceutical sector, or that the healthcare sector more broadly in the US, represents about 10% of greenhouse gas emissions, and globally around 5%. It's not hard to imagine that. If you think about driving through the towns and cities where you are, what's the building that operates 24 hours 7 with its lights on and its ventilation system going? It's the hospital or medical center. I need 3 hands for this. Okay, thanks, that would be great. Yeah. So in setting up the Pfizer's first environmental sustainability strategy, we built it around 4 areas, around greener products, responsible manufacturing, and addressing sustainability concerns, and promoting a safety culture. And these service not just our shareholders, but our customers, our patients, our suppliers, our communities, and our employees. So it was around stakeholder capitalism, not just shareholder capitalism. And then we built the business case, so somehow that, you got it. Great. And just to highlight some of the innovations that we brought to the portfolio, starting in the upper left, you can see this small syringe that was designed to be shipped around the world to deliver a product, much smaller footprint than your standard plastic syringe, a lot less waste generated. You go to the one below that, we developed enzymatic chemistry to eliminate solvents from manufacturing processes that had dramatically improved its footprint. Or the idea of bringing in barrier additives that would make allow us to use less plastic in our bottles. Or getting extra doses out of a vial. And this is critical when you're dealing with cold chain products, because the energy intensiveness of those. And whenever I got my COVID booster, I would always ask the person administering it, how many doses did you get out of that vial? Hoping to hear about 5 or 6, which would be a great improvement. Thanks. And as I say, these brought tremendous business value and brought involvement from across the organization. You can see you could have revenue sources, strengthen the business, and protect the business. And by the way, you can see all those attributes on the side. Never is it mentioned sustainability, but it cuts across the organization from marketing to finance to HR, and that's what we want to try and get into our discussion. So I'm hoping that when we do the breakout, we can put forth 2 topics: overseeing sustainability in a large organization and mobilizing folks that don't have sustainability as their job, or something on climate and health impacts and what we can do to address those. So I'll be back in the corner over there, and I hope to see you then.
Wonderful, thanks, Tom. So this was one of the questions that I actually had never considered until I heard Tom, was the sustainability of my medicine. So that's what part of this showcase is as well, is to expose you to different ideas, even if you're united by the climate umbrella or ecosystem. I'm excited that Evan's here next. Evan studied history at the college and then is what we refer to as a jointee. So he went to the Harvard Business School and the Kennedy School. He's now a partnerships manager of climate finance at RMI. Evan, take it away.
Thanks. I think I can do it in 2 hands. Is this on?
Yeah.
Great. Great. Yeah, so thanks so much. Great to be here. As Danny said, my name is Evan Kornbluh. I manage financial sector partnerships at Rocky Mountain Institute, or now known as RMI. RMI is a global nonprofit working to harness the power of markets to drive the clean energy transition. So that work is based on our experience that when you align incentives and equip the right actors with the right information, markets can take over as one of the fastest tools we have to scale clean technology. I specifically work on RMI's partnerships with large banks. We think banks are really critical to the transition because they have deep, long-term partnerships with all the biggest companies in the highest emitting sectors. It's challenging work, though, because they're some of the slowest to move and most risk-averse actors in the economy. RMI specifically has been working with banks since about 2020, going back to when some of them started making the first big public climate commitments. Some of you might have heard in the news about some pullback from those commitments in the last year, so it's a good time to look under the hood at what's happening. One thing you can look at, which tells not the whole, but a part of the story, is overall financing to the energy system. So last year, we saw about $2 overall go to finance renewables for every $1 going to finance fossil fuels. So that's real significant progress over the last 5 years. But it's still a long way away from what's estimated the closer to 4-to-1 ratio that we think we need to hit by that metric by the end of the decade. From RMI's work, though, we also think there's important trends that don't really show up in that financing data yet. So from our work with banks, we're seeing them hire out big teams working on climate and sustainability. They're asking their clients more questions about emissions and climate transition plans. And a lot of that's getting integrated into regular risk assessments at the bank. So we're seeing banks look at their business and clients through a climate lens in a way that they just weren't 5 years ago. So what does that mean for forward progress? We think it means that even with these pullbacks from public commitments that you've seen, the biggest banks are really treating the energy transition as baked into the economy moving forward, not something that's going to reverse. And we think it means that where it's important to focus next is making sure that as banks are evaluating their businesses through a climate lens, it's not just a question of voluntary pledges, but they're really using the energy transition to answer questions about business models, risk, and profitability, so that climate is an input into real critical business and lending decisions. So that's what my team at RMI is most focused on right now, is sort of bridging that gap between climate analysis and business intelligence. We think the key to that is really about getting really specific about different markets, sectors, and technologies. So one piece of work we did on this last year, we worked with a large global lender that was evaluating a diversified metals and mining company. And we found that if you zoomed in really specifically by asset and by market, the company wasn't going to meet the national climate targets in its biggest market unless it could take one of the biggest steel plants and over the next 10 years swap in a different lower carbon technology. And so the lender was able to use that information and go into its client engagements with a more specific climate-informed strategy. We like to say our slogan is applied hope, so we're going to keep chipping away at this hard challenge. And I'd love to chat more in the breakout about the role of markets and finance in the energy transition, the role that research and civil society can play, or to answer any questions about what I shared. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. As he transitions over to Angela, I realized I can also walk around the room, so I don't have to be anchored to the front. One of the interesting tidbits is that Evan, Angela, and I all live in DC, so we get to see each other often at the happy hours that we convene with the HBS, HKS, the college, regardless. So instead of a topical transition, I thought I'd just throw in a fun one. So sure. But for Angela, we have an economics and environmental science undergraduate from the college who graduated in this past May.
December 24.
December. And we were really excited to have her join us in DC, where she's an impact solutions analyst at TPG. Take it away.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for the introduction. I'm Angela, and I work in private equity, which is something that I was so embarrassed to tell everyone who worked in climate. I was like, I'm Angela, and I work in private equity. But actually, I think I graduated at a time right when the IRA and all these things were in flux, and so private capital is especially important. Coming from the buy side of things, I'm here to share with you a little bit about how we think about measuring impact. Won't get into my career path. There's not that much to talk about there. But here is, without further ado, TPG. TPG is a blue chip private equity firm. We have a ton of different funds, and I cover the Impact Fund, which consists of the RISE Fund and the RISE Climate Funds. And I sit within Y Analytics, which is a public benefit organization housed under the TPG umbrella. And what's unique about Y Analytics is that we were established with the establishment of the Impact Fund itself, and we are being used to identify what companies are worth allocating this impact-focused capital into. And so how do we do that? First, we use leading industry data sets. We read tons of econometrics papers. I never thought I was going to use EC 1123, but here I am. And also, we cover not only climate, but also financial inclusion, healthcare, education, and civic technologies as well. But within climate, we can cover a host of different topics, including adaptation and resilience. We cover things like transmission and distribution. So a ton of different things. Check sizes range from 75 $25 million and above, we are usually doing control deals, so we'll be the majority shareholder once the transaction closes. And what makes us unique in this fund is that we not only have to prove that this company might meet some sort of internal rate of return threshold that most other impact funds do, but our team, my team on the impact side, also builds out a model on top of the financial model to determine if it meets a certain impact multiple threshold. And if it doesn't meet either of those thresholds, we don't invest in it. And so we have to be really disciplined in thinking about the host of different companies that we could be looking at and to determine where to best allocate this capital. And so I'll be talking a little bit about impact measurement in my breakout session as well as early careers, but I wanted to get us started by distributing a little bit about how we actually quantify impact. So we usually do it by identifying different pathways. So it could be reduced greenhouse gas emissions. Often, if you're reducing greenhouse gas emissions, you might also be improving air quality. So we want to give companies credit for that too. So for every single pathway, we take the financial base case and we sort of decide from that how many end users are getting impacted and how big of an uplift are these end users getting impacted by, whether it's through wages, from improved education, or health emissions, things like that. And we do that over the counterfactual. So we ask ourselves, without this company, would these end users still be getting access to these services? If yes, we don't think the company is that additional. And finally, we monetize that amount. In climate, that's often the social cost of carbon, the social value of water, and we take risk adjustments. We think a lot of the companies we're looking at are cutting edge, and so there's not always evidence about them. We're running our own surveys to identify that. We're working with management teams, CDD providers, et cetera. And finally, we also multiply that by how many years we're expecting to own the company for in order to quantify a value of impact. Finally, we multiply that by the fund stake, so how much of the company we own, and divide that by the check size. And all of that gives you the impact multiple of money, the IMM, which is what I do on a day-to-day basis. We're following these companies throughout the deal cycle. I think this is a really novel approach to private equity. I'm really proud, actually, to be part of this organization. I think there's a lot to be learned because we're building with a team of chief economists to make this methodology and improve it year after year. So would love to share more about these resources, but also happy to chat about it in the breakout sessions. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Angela. Next up, we have Ujjwal from the Harvard Kennedy School, the mid-career MPA program. He is a founder of Quantum Alliance, where very nicely coming in after Angela, he's talking about scaling deep tech and climate solutions through the Quantum Alliance. Ujjwal, take it away.
Thank you, Danny. When you're born away from power centers, from networks, from people who you look up in general to move ahead in life, you build your own bridges. That has been the journey and the story of my life. I'm Ujjwal Kumar, now founder of Quantum Alliance. We create market ecosystems for scaling deep technologies for climate solutions. I'm here to talk about something which we deeply care about at Harvard. How can we take world-changing ideas, the innovation, and actually change the world? Imagine a student, a scientist, an innovator sitting here right here in Cambridge, developing some amazing idea which could help smallholder farmers, which could help the climate, but it risks coming out in the market itself. When I was working with Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, I worked with many smallholder farmers. And my work was helping with the technology to improve the productivity, to make agriculture lucrative again for the farmers, to bring more people in farming, but to also show them economic development out of it. The work was very inspiring, but one pattern was very common. Some of the amazing ideas I used to hear never reached them. I realized solutions exist, there were solutions in the world, but systems were not. And this is what is called Valley of Death, where most of these amazing technologies get stuck. You do not find your first customers, regulations are complex, the project financiers cannot wrap their head around. Very recently, around $50 billion investment in the venture-backed deep tech startups failed to reach the market. So we came up with the idea of Quantum Alliance. How? Because I came to Harvard, where I learned to lead with frameworks. I went through a couple of frameworks during my time. One was Professor Ricardo Hausman's economic complexity frameworks, tools, which now we use at Quantum Alliance to map the tech, the economic incentives, and the policy, and how to align them. That's what we do first, we map. Then we bring the right stakeholders together, the innovators, the corporates, the governments, which can have those high impact use cases with them. Who could be the first customers, who could be the first supporter. Then we mobilize all those people and create pilot projects. This is actually working. We are doing an event at New York Climate Week with MIT, which is about climate finance. And we are working with S3 Market on environment attributes certificates, where we are bringing in book and claim systems. We have in the room all the big names, but the right people also. For example, Meta, Google, everyone is in the room. We are going through a deal, which we'll be announcing there. And my call of action is, if you have ideas, if you have any, if you fit in any of those stakeholder things, come talk to me. We want those ideas to reach to the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Ujjwal. And again, if any of you are going to be in New York for Climate Week, hopefully you've already RSVP'd for the Salata Institute's Tuesday event at the Harvard Club of New York, or the Sunday happy hour on the Green Pioneer. Many more of these things you can find out on Salata's website, and they launched a brand new Interfacing Alumni website if you haven't seen that yet. Next up, we have Seán, who received a doctorate in educational leadership from the Harvard Graduate School of Education. He's now the Director of Education and Training at EarthRights International. Seán, over to you.
Thank you, Danny. Anybody know what this is? Rock. A rock? Fair. Wait, did I hear it? Copper. Copper is actually this one here on the left. This one is the one on the right. This is cobalt. And I feel like you probably should know about it because each of you probably have some of this in your pocket. Some of you may have used cobalt to get here today because cobalt, it goes into every lithium-ion battery, which is in every single iPhone, or Android. It also is what makes the batteries in electric vehicles. It makes them light, it makes them rechargeable, and it stops them from overheating. Why am I talking about cobalt? Because 70% of the world's cobalt comes from the Democratic Republic of Congo, the DRC. An area about the size of Rhode Island in the southeast DRC called Katanga has 70% of the world's cobalt. And the folks down there who are mining it, it's primarily large Chinese development companies, industrial mining, and the folks who are doing the mining, there's miners and then there's artisanal mining as well. And what's happening is the big companies that are down there, they're able to bring this cobalt to us, to our phones, to our electric vehicles, incredibly cheaply because they completely ignore every human rights and environmental standard in the world. How does this connect here? I'm an educator. I came to Hugsy as an educator, and I wanted to learn how to change systems. I wanted to learn how to think big picture. I wanted to learn how to drive change. And I wound up at EarthRights. So we're a nonprofit, and we work with the communities on the front lines. And so when AfriWatch, they're an NGO in the Democratic Republic of Congo, they came to us and they said, we know you guys do some education programs. We know you do trainings for communities on advocating for their own rights, on knowing the laws, on holding people accountable. And they said, we want to build a training program in the Congo. And so for the last 3 years, I've been going down for about 2 weeks. We've got the next and final installation of our training program scheduled for this February. And we're working with these communities. We're teaching them about advocacy. We're teaching them frameworks and power mapping and understanding stakeholders. And it's having an impact. Just within the last 3 months, 2 of the biggest, Manolo Lithium, Kamoa Copper, and you can look this up later, they've agreed to meet with communities and talk about their social obligations. The social obligations that under the law, they're required to put money back into the communities. They're required to build hospitals and roads. Kamoa Copper, Manolo Lithium, we're having an impact. These communities are out there using their voices. Very proud to have been a part of that. Hugsy has helped me to think about the systems, the framework, how to build alliances, how to work in the nonprofit sector. I'd love to chat with you more, talk to you about any of our education programs, talk to you about what EarthRights does. But if you're leaving here and you're wondering what you can do next, quick call to action. You can read Cobalt Red. Siddhartha Kara has written a book about this. You'll hear lots more about all this. You'll learn about your phone and your electric vehicle and the cobalt, all the other critical minerals. You can get on and follow Friends of the Congo online. They have some easy one-page fact sheets that can tell you more about it. You can sign up for earthrights.org. Shameless plug. You can look at us and figure out how we're working with communities to help shift power. So I'll be over here, and thanks for your time.
Thank you, Sean. Now I'm going to ask everyone to take the cobalt out of your pocket. Head over to harvardclimate.com. Half joke. But all of the speakers, congratulations, and thank you for sharing your work, your inspiration, and your vision with everyone in the room here. I'm going to ask you all to stand up. Everyone out there as well, please stand up. And now is the time for musical chairs. But before we assign the speakers to the different breakouts, just wanted to give another thank you to Peter and Leslie and all of the staff that are making Harvard Climate Action Week, the Climate Symposium possible here. Thank you all for showing up as well, right? There wouldn't be an event if there wasn't interest or enthusiasm. Thank you to Santiago, Morgan, Al, Brooke, all of these other Harvard Alumni for Climate and Environment organizers, and to all of the panelists as well. So Elizabeth is going to be here in the first breakout room here, then followed by Tom, and then Evan in the back. We'll then have Angela up here where Sandy is, and then go Ujjwal and then Seán in the back corner as well. You'll also be able to see them and follow in case there's any additional shuffle. But thank you all for coming. You'll be in these breakout groups. And then we have the room past 2 o'clock as well, so you can continue to meet each other. Remember, all of those I remembered who said you didn't know someone. So you're spotted and you'll leave here knowing at least 2 other people. Okay, thank you all and enjoy the breakout groups.